let's talk about Spider-Man number 7 by Brian Bendis and Nico Leon. Um, to have a peek behind the curtain, we've had a 5 minute discussion about this before my computer had a meltdown, so sorry if we sound like we've talked about this before. It's because we literally did 5 minutes ago. Um, Alex, give us a recap of your feelings on this issue, please.
I enjoyed the issue, and the artwork lends itself to a very moody atmosphere, which matches well with the story that Miles is petrified. He's afraid of what's going to happen. He doesn't want to go to war, but he also doesn't feel like he can't. He's got being pulled in every which way. I mean, he's fortunate that he's quite ignorant of the fact that people, well, until the very end, that people know what's going on in his life as well. Because having that weighing on his shoulders at the same time would be pretty harsh. The story itself, there's not a lot happens in it. There's just a lot of exposition, chatting between characters, just figuring out what the next steps are. It fits in really well to the Civil War story in that everyone's getting dragged in and there are no real world consequences for people, and it is having an impact on people's lives. I do really like the art style of this book. It drives home the fact that this is serious. It's a serious style of artwork. It's moody. I don't want to overuse the term, but it really delves inside what the characters are feeling just by looking at how they are on the page, and it's good. I like it.
Yeah, this is one of those things that Marvel's events have always done better in their tie-ins. They're exploring the actual emotional fallout of an event. The big story is normally like a blockbuster movie. It just kind of goes from action set piece to action set piece. Whereas in these sort of tie-ins, you often find all the human elements that are sometimes missing from the main book. And I think this is very much the case here. This is a one person's moral dilemma. Do I get involved in this conflict or not? Scott, you're not much of a Miles Morales reader recently, but
not recently.
As someone coming sort of fresh into it, what did you make of it all? Did it all make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's simple enough to pick up the basic plot line of what's going on, and obviously a lot of it ties in from Civil War 2, which I am following, because Civil War 2, we'll talk about that at some other point. But yeah, no, like I picked it up fairly quickly. Obviously, the whole stuff with Jessica Jones was like, huh? And then I was like, oh, okay, I get where this is going. But yeah, I really enjoyed it coming into it, especially the stuff about, like, oh, you're Avengers, that's big time, but it's like, oh, well, am I? And it's like, it's not that big. And then it's like, how do you say no to Tony Stark? Kind of putting Tony Stark as a god figure. It's like, how do you say no to this giant force asking you to help? Which is kind of like probably what we're going to see in Spider-Man Homecoming. Which, now that I just thought about that, like, obviously he takes a kid from Queens. Obviously it's Peter Parker in Civil War.
Yeah.
Which is confusing because Civil War. But yeah, so that's a cool little parallel there that I've only just realised. Like, how do you say no to a man who's so big in the comics and in the movies?
I mean,
I really like that discussion.
I wonder if that's they are making Tony Stark the center of this story, and I mean, he was central in Civil War 1 as well, but obviously he was more on the wrong side of that.
Yeah.
Whereas this side, he seems to be the moral center of it as well. And I wonder if that is them sort of stepping in more in line with the movies, because Iron Man is kind of the godfather of the Marvel universe on film, and Cap at the minute is not in a position to take that role.
It's not Cap anymore.
So it's probably another case of that synergy they're trying to create by having Tony Stark be like this, put on this pillar.
I think, interestingly, I know we're not talking about the Miss Marvel book this week, but it's the reverse on that side of it. Miss Marvel's always lifted Captain Marvel up onto a pedestal.
Yeah.
And it was never a question that she was going to side with her in this again until this week.
Yeah.
So it looks like you've definitely got two parallel arms running on both sides of the line.
That's
basically telling the same story.
Yeah.
It's also reminiscent of the first Civil War storyline with obviously Tony goading Peter Parker into reveal himself.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
obviously Tony and Spider-Man have a affiliation with Civil War. It's just interesting how that's drawn up on, and then obviously the whole nightmare sequence as well of him dreading the Hulk coming,
Mm.
all that vision. Yeah, it was a powerful issue for sure, especially with everything that's happening.
It's very morally grey, which is always fascinating, and that's why like there's not much in terms of plot, but there's a lot of interesting conversation taking place and a lot of thought process going into Miles' decision. And Tony, there's this question: is he manipulating Miles or not? And Bombshell seems to imply he's just trying to get what he wants out of you. And the way he sold it to Miles was kind of uncomfortable when he compared it to like profiling. And the book, this Spider-Man book in particular, has taken a bit of has explored some racial themes recently, and you start getting the impression: is Tony just deliberately pushing his buttons, or is he just trying to put this in a way that he can really understand where it's coming from? So there's a lot of sort of interesting character work taking place where you never quite know where people are coming from, and it's probably a mixture of both, like good and selfish things that Tony's doing. So I'm interested to see. We get the idea of where Miles' allegiance will fall already, but how he kind of comes to that decision is still up in the air. Before we're rudely interrupted by technological malfunctions, we were talking about how Civil War 2 might develop in the future, and I wonder if Marvel overheard us and has sabotaged me because we're too close to the truth. But
They're everywhere.
we were saying that these visions of a Hulk on a rampage destroying everyone that caused us to go down this route with killing Bruce Banner, speculating as to whether that vision may have been of a different Hulk, possibly Amadeus Cho. At the end of The Fallen, he was the one person in the Hulk kind of family who did not take Bruce Banner's advice before making any important decisions. I think it was count to 10 or something like that. And he
Egg timers, 3 minutes.
One of them. That's it. Yeah. So he just went off on one, and remains to be seen what exactly he's going to do. But he's not happy, and it's just we just speculated a bit about, could it be that this vision is still going to come to pass, and it's just a different Hulk than they thought.
Very well could be the case.
I want it to be. Mainly because I'm falling on Team Stark in this one, and I have at the very beginning you couldn't choose a side easily. I think now it's getting to the point where it is a lot easier to choose a side to fall on.
Yeah.
As a reader, and I'm putting myself firmly on the side of Team Stark, and I would like to see Amadeus go absolutely ballistic and trash the joint.
Yeah.
Because I think Captain Marvel needs to wise up a bit and realise that she's hurting a lot more people than she should be. But yeah, personal opinions there.
Yeah, it's interesting with these hero versus hero conflicts, because as much as they try to make it so that both sides are balanced and you could choose one or the other, they very much did with the first Civil War. I think they realised to tell a compelling story, that is very difficult. And most people are going to end up coming down on one side. And I think this time they've not so much tried to get the readers to go on to each side, but they seem to be doing a lot of work to at least show us why Captain Marvel feels the way she does. And they've had a character die who was very close to both parties, and they've both taken it very differently. So whilst it may not be that we as readers really choose to side with Captain Marvel in any great numbers, we can at least understand where she's coming from.
I think the real world geopolitical climate has probably done more for Marvel's storytelling here than anything else, with profiling side of things, and it's definitely people are looking at what's happening in the real world, and that's telling the story for them.
Yeah.
So whereas maybe if it was a different real world events that were happening, you get more Captain Marvel fans thinking, yeah, this is best. Why are we having crimes even being allowed to happen? But yeah, you can definitely understand where she's coming from, which is it's nice. I like that because it is. There's no black and white to deal with in the real world. Why should there be? So it needs to be that as well in the books. It's not like it's Doctor Octopus kicking off and causing chaos everywhere.
Yeah.
This isn't a bad guy. This is two people doing things for good reasons.
Yeah.
And why they're doing it might be, or sorry, the way they're doing it might not be right, but the reasoning why is definitely there.
Well, we'll find out if we're right in a few weeks, I suppose, as Civil War 2 continues.